All right, we're live here. Hi, guys. Welcome to The Trade, episode 43. Today we're interviewing a good new friend, a frequent time person I have talked to a lot on Facebook because he is very active there, Jim Horwitz. He does the strip Watson, and you can find him on Facebook at facebook.com/Watson Comics. All right. Yay, I got it right. I'll be your host today, Melanie. I do a comic strip called Ornamental at ornamentalcomics.com. And with me today is Kelly Bastow. She does a number of different media outlets, but her best spot you can find some of her work at is on Instagram under Moose Kleenex, and also under Etsy, as well as under Moose Kleenex. Kelly is my co-host this episode. Yay!
All right. Hi, guys. How you doing?
All right, yeah. Okay. Well, Jim, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and about how you got Watson started?
Okay, and again, Melanie and Kelly, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here and to be part of episode 43.
Yay!
Yay! I think that there's only like a few different narratives you can choose from when asking people that draw comics how they got started. Mine is probably the most common and the least interesting. I grew up reading comics in the newspaper, and I grew up reading all the books you get from the bookstore, Garfield, and The Far Side, and Calvin and Hobbes, and on and on. And you know, I was a doodler. Hello, my name's Jim. I'm a doodler, and would draw. You know, hi, Jim. You know, and I would draw, you know, and I would buy little sketch pads from the art store, and I would color. And I just kept at it and took little breaks, but just one foot in front of the other. And as the time goes by, you know, some of the pieces start to fall together.
Were you influenced at all by any of the mainstream media besides strips in the paper?
Sure. How far back are we talking? Just since the beginning of time?
Pretty much, since your beginning.
Oh, sure. And all media is fair game?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, son of a gun. Of course. I was a huge movie fan as a kid and still am. And, you know, I love Star Wars and, you know, loved playing with toys, and I loved awful television of the 80s. If there was a show that I loved, there's a very good chance it would only have one season before it got pulled because no one else liked it. Automan, Misfits of Science, Manimal.
Manimal? Oh my god.
You remember Manimal?
I remember Manimal.
Manimal was awesome. I'm old too. No, Manimal was great. It's about a guy who like changes into animals. He does like a special breathing thing, and you know the most cool animal turned was a Black Panther. You know, but they had these really awful sort of, you know, Jim Henson Creature Shop things where they had the hand with the claws that came out of the knuckles, and it was awesome. So yeah, I think many influences: comic books, you know, television, movies, just playing VHS, the culture of pop culture. Sure. And I mean, nothing I think is off limits. And, you know, later, as I got older, books too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everything. Except country music. But everything else but that.
Oh.
Well, there's something that's okay.
I like some of the older country. I don't like any of the new stuff at all. At all. That's all pop, and that's just nasty.
But, I mean, it's all blends. Like, Lyle Lovett is good, and I don't know.
But that's me.
Yeah.
I like the simple old country where it's just like a guy drinking whiskey and singing about love and stuff.
Yeah, the old folksy bluegrass style. I like Hank Williams the first and whatnot. Well, to talk about people knowing people, my dad's best friend, his name is Cotton Reed. He is a longtime musician from Nashville. He fiddled for Hank Williams the first.
Wow.
Yeah, he was one of the musicians that toured with him until he got into his first car accident with Hank behind the wheel and busted his wrist.
Oh my goodness.
Oh God.
But good story, but probably not worth all the hijinks.
No, definitely not. But yeah, he has a lot of stories, and his music is still out there to this day.
That's amazing. Great story.
Yep. He's got several. I know he's got at least 1,500 songs they still play and remaster to this day. So, yeah, talk about prolific musician.
With digitally enhanced effects, new THX sound, and a few new surprises.
Yeah. But anyways, back around. But yeah, so general, pop culture influences all just in different ways, and we focus in different areas, and that really influences our brains, definitely. My household was definitely a mix of Star Wars, Star Trek,
Sure.
I don't know about yours, but my parents are huge nerds.
Yeah. My parents were probably older than your parents. They were not nerds in that way, but I have lots of older brothers, and there was definitely an element of nerdiness throughout the house. I think when people talk about comics and what have you, I've discovered a slight difference between inspiration and influences. Inspiration is the stuff that you look at that makes you feel creative, like you want to make stuff, and influences are the things that you see that people can see in your work. So I have many more things from which I derive inspiration than I do influences, meaning, you can look at my strip and say, oh, there's some sort of a Bill Watterson influence, and it's something you can look at versus what gets me excited about making stuff, and that's vast,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And you need that. You need inspiration. Otherwise, you're like, oh, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah. Well, it helps to be a motivating factor.
Oh, yeah.
But you also just need to do the work.
Yes, there's a very good quote by Chuck Jones, the animator from Bugs Bunny, who said, "Amateurs wait for inspiration. The rest of us just go to work," which I've always liked.
Inspiration's great. I mean, it will get your pencil moving. It gets your heart racing. It gets that sparkle in your eye. But it doesn't always get the work done.
True. That's true.
So I love inspiration. I love it when it visits me. I say hello, give it a warm cup of cocoa, sit down, we chat, and then she fucks off. And and then I'm still left going, but I'm not done yet.
I did have times in my career when I took a break from comics. When inspiration was elusive, but it never lasted too long.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's very good.
Here we are.
Yep, it's true. So how long have you...
Jim...
Oh, go ahead.
Kelly.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to ask the same, probably. So when did you start with Watson?
Good question. Watson started, happening long before it was actually on the internet. Let's see. I want to say that I started drawing Watson, fiddling around in about 2006. But I did not start putting Watson. I didn't start putting Watson on the internet until 2010 because I wanted to get it to a place where I felt comfortable. So I don't know if my feeling with Watson starting in 2006 was necessarily consistent. I had this idea that I was moving towards these ideas, and I would try things, and but there's many unseen Watson strips that people have never seen. But I mean, there were many strips before Watson. I did strips in college and out of college and back in college and very strange things. We can maybe talk about that in a bit. So in short,
have they ever been collected?
No, they haven't, and I know that's that's my job, but it's not a priority. I'm thinking tomorrow is, what tomorrow is, and I'm like, okay, I can wake up and I can have some coffee and I can draw another Watson strip, or I can start putting all those other things together to make some money, blah blah blah, or maybe make no money, and it's not so. I'm going to draw my strip. I'm going to draw my strip. So who knows? Maybe down the road, if I'm ever lucky enough to have an archivist, or I kick the bucket at a ripe old age, and my kids want to do it, I'll get to it at some point. But it's not a top priority.
Not right this second, anyways.
Yeah.
No, not at the moment. But I'll throw one out there maybe at some point.
Gotcha.
Good question. Thanks.
So why don't you go ahead and tell the audience about Watson itself, a little bit of the storyline there.
Sure. Well, as far back, my website had sort of a hiccup a while back, so my archives have been sort of scrambled, a la something from the first 15 minutes of Tron. So I've been having to go back and manually recreate. Curse that master control program! I've been having to go back and recreate my archives, looking at the old database, like XML, like this thing was posted on this date. Let me go find it and put it back. Blah blah. And that I'm also not doing that tomorrow either. So as far back as you can go onto the internet, in 2010, Watson was a black and white, longish newspaper, dimensionized, one-panel thing. And it's always been about the title character, Watson, who is a dog. He's always supposed to have been a chocolate Labrador. I, in fact, have a chocolate Labrador named Watson, who I bought in 2000, who we came into our family in 2005, who is the inspiration for the strip. And so it's him and another little, his owner is a little boy named Fudgy, and something that I've never revealed to anyone before. Fudgy has been around for many years. He appeared in a previous strip that I drew in college, and in that strip his name was Muddy, and then I changed it to Fudgy. But he looked very similar, sort of a little pudgy, cute kid. So it's Watson and Fudgy who are the main characters, and there's a free-floating cast of other little characters who come in and interact with them. Early on, there were a few more main characters. There's a little girl named Clover who has orange hair, and she's sort of a little spitfire. And then there's another little boy named Peanut who sort of wears glasses and was sort of like a little weird antisocial fellow. And Peanut has sort of drifted away, and Clover not as much anymore. And other little kids pop in and out to sometimes help with jokes or add some perspective. But as of late, I'd say Watson and Fudgy seem to be taking center stage. And if I need other little friends for them to talk to, other little kids come in. So for about the past year and a half, the name of the strip has been Watson and the Good Haven Kids, which is the neighborhood. So that leaves the door open for other things to happen that aren't specifically related to just Watson the dog. So
Nice.
It's very standard comic strip, fair, kids and pets.
It's adorable.
It has its moments. Thank you.
It's fun. I've been enjoying at least the one you have up on the website right now, with them in their little futuristic space outfits and whatnot.
Oh yes. Yeah, that was a strange stylistic day. I tried something unusual. I do things that are weird, and no one seems to notice or care. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad.
They're just seeing where you're going with it.
Yeah, he's like, I'll show Jim. I'm going to stop reading his strip on the internet. That'll learn him. Yeah, I don't
That'll tell him.
Yeah, what are you doing? What's this crazy look? I'm not going to... Goodbye. Okay, goodbye. Yeah, so no one seems to notice, which is good, I guess. The diehard fans stay with me, which is good.
That's what you want.
Sure. Yeah, I want people to be happy.
Exactly.
But there have been backlashes.
Oh yeah? Like on what?
In earlier this year, like in February or March, I did sort of a one-off gag where Fudgy is giving Watson a haircut and he chops his ear off, and Watson is in the barber chair and he's got the smock on, and you hear I think Watson says, "What was that sound?" And then Fudgy's like, and then he's holding his scissors, and on the counter is like Watson's ear, like a big brown sock, and you can look on the side of Watson's head, and there's like a little red stump with no blood. And I thought it was sort of funny, sort of like Looney Tunes or Wile E. Coyote, or like they're just cartoon characters. And there was a lot of chatter on my Facebook page, and I felt...
That's not going to fly.
Yeah.
No, I even...
You mutilated a pet, even if it's, cartoon or otherwise, you mutilated a pet.
Yeah,
How dare you?
Yeah.
I heard about it here at home as well. I was quite surprised. And then people said, someone said on Facebook, no one cares about Wile E. Coyote getting blown up because he's not adorable, but Watson is a beloved. So the next strip, which I really had to overdraw, Watson wakes up in a daze in Calvin and Hobbes land, and Calvin's mom has bandaged Watson. You can find it on the website. And I think Fudgy is there, and he's holding Hobbes. And Watson is sort of dazed, and he said, "What's going on?" And Fudgy's like, "Don't worry, it's just a wonderful dream."
Basically, all the drugs. It's to do drugs.
And then when I think he wakes up, and the next strip, maybe his ear is a little red, but it was quickly forgotten. I find that 3 days is a good time to metabolize things.
So do you make your strip daily, weekly?
I do 3 days a week.
Nice. Any particular reason why, or is it just...
Well, I think the stress or the regimen of having to produce a strip every day, a la the daily newspaper, is very taxing. And I hear about that from my friends who have daily strips in the paper. It's very stressful. So as long as I'm not being held to that sort of thing, a little break is nice.
Give you a little bit of time to rev the juices and whatnot.
That's to go to my magic place and relax.
Happy place.
Yeah, and also if I have a crappy idea, I don't feel compelled to,
just spit it out and keep going.
Just let things bounce around a little bit. It's fine. Who knows?
I do
draw on days that I don't do strips, but I like to just draw other things. Just explore the galaxy.
Do you have an Instagram or a Tumblr or anything like that where you post those by chance?
If I fall down the stairs, I've been known to take a Tumblr from time to time.
Bunch.
I'll be here all night. Thank you. I don't think I have a Tumblr. I think I have. Hang on. I'd have to look at my phone. There's a photo thing. Maybe I have Instagram. I'm on Twitter. But I'd say just Facebook. Again, I won't be doing that tomorrow either. But I'll take a look.
All right. Well, it's more content to put out there to attract more readers. It's always an idea to put it up there.
Which app would you recommend?
Instagram.
Okay, let me make a note.
That's where I've been.
Instagram's blowing up.
Yeah, Instagram's been pretty good to me, and I know it's been very good to Kelly. She's been getting a lot of traffic because I follow her and I comment all the time. Oh, Kelly does awesome art. Kelly is an awesome artist.
I will look at Kelly's stuff. Loose Kleenex.
Moose Kleenex. Yes. Because it is the better running nosy Kleenex. The moose. Yes. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and go to some of the news stories we talked about before we started recording here. The first one was talking about, and this has been commented on the Washington Post and on the New York Times both, and they both referred to this article, so this is the one I'm going to go off of. And I'll have links for it down in the doobly-doo for anybody that wants to go and read the articles we're talking about. This one is titled, Self-Published Comics Are Changing an Aging Industry for the Better. They might not eliminate traditional publishing, but they are quickly outpacing it. The writer of the article was Caitlin Rosberg. And she specifies a bunch of well-known webcomics and self-publishing indie people, Spike Trotman, did like the Smut Peddler run. She is the CEO of Iron Circus Comics. And they also talk about several other self-publishers, Seth Monster and Tanaka Stouts of Beyond Press. And they do their own webcomics as well. And they've been really putting their efforts into the self-publishing industry and been getting great results, especially with their Kickstarters. And yes, I back several of them. So. But, you know, that is where I found more quality comics than from the big guys anymore. It's not that the big guys don't have their place. They do a lot of the superhero-based stuff, you know, and there's always room in the spectrum for more superhero stuff. But at least as I have aged as a reader personally, it's gotten old. It's gotten a bit stale for me. So I went to more independent comics reading, and I found far more fulfillment and better stories. And there are self-published ones that do very good superhero ones as well. A buddy of ours of the podcast, Dave Barrick, he does Girl Power comics. And, I mean, self-publishing itself has been on the rise, and it's actually, I think, revitalizing the whole of the industry. Because people are getting just inundated by the big guys, and they're not producing enough new stuff to keep readers. They've already got established foothold with an older crowd, but they don't seem to have gotten one with any of the younger generations that are coming up, except maybe in a minor capacity. So I found with the self-publishing industry, the reason why it's rising is because younger generations especially are looking for just other stories. What are your thoughts, guys?
You go first, Kelly.
Yeah, I totally agree. And especially the younger people now are producing content that's a lot more personal, and it's talking about you know, social commentary. It's talking about you know, political issues. There's a lot of auto-bio stuff going on, and like a lot of this content could be too you know, controversial or just a bit too niche, and these big publishers don't really want to touch it. So instead of these you know, young creators just kind of tap dancing and trying to get their work out there, they're saying, well, screw you, I'm going to do it myself, because, you know, they know they'll have more of an audience anyway, because you know, nowadays you can just put your stuff online and get a bit of a following.
Because internet, basically.
Yes.
I found overall the internet has been one of the most powerful tools, besides entertainment, which of course there's plenty of, for being able to just reach those niche audiences. It is just a better way now, because it is a giant entertainment and communication device. And
absolutely.
And I think it's best that way, because, I mean, we all live in different countries, we live in different states, different cities, different towns, we come from different backgrounds, but we as people can reach out to each other through the power of the internet and through the power of our comics. You know, bios especially are very good for linking us kind of as a whole, you know, and being able to give us something to relate to. And because these big publishers don't seem to understand that maybe they need to start dipping their toe into that water a little bit. Maybe they need to go ahead and think about helping, or maybe just doing collaboration work with some smaller guys, and just going ahead and putting some of that smaller work out there, because even though they've got a big audience that's only, you know, that they've focused one way, that audience is shrinking. It's slowly shrinking. As much as their movies and whatnot are coming out, overall the big guys have been known for the past years now to be on a slow decline. It's been a gradual decline. And it's not to be, rude, disrespectful to the guys. It's just maybe you need to wrap it up a bit on a different take. I'm not saying get rid of superheroes at all. But maybe start going with what the self-publishers are going with. Maybe go ahead and make a auto-bio niche within your company. Or just do some collaboration work, So in collaboration with, one of these smaller guys that they mentioned, in collaboration with Spike, that would be fantastic if Dark Horse, for instance, teamed up with Spike and did a couple of really cool books. People would flip out. It would gain her a bigger audience, and it would gain them a bigger audience as well, and it would kind of combine everybody. And again, communication. It's best.
Well, I don't think, Marvel and DC are going to be putting out, diary comics about a 19-year-old girl or anything, but the more indie publishers like Top Shelf, Koyama Press, First Second, and those are doing a lot more of those kinds of comics, and I think they're certainly growing their audience.
Well, I hope so, anyways. It seems to be revitalizing everything and, well, in fact, making it stronger for everybody in the long run.
I can't speak to superhero comics because I don't know them as well as the newspaper comic strip industry, but what you're saying is definitely true in that microcosm with that specific art form. From what I hear, there are about 40,000 webcomics on the internet worldwide, and there are how many syndicated comic strips? I can't say for sure. Maybe 350. So even 10% of 40,000 is 4,000. So I think what's most difficult about, and I'm not a businessman, so I don't know for sure, but it's extremely difficult, I think, for any industry, movies, music, what have you, to throw a lasso around that much content for many reasons. One is, there's quality control of those 40,000 strips. How many are good and interesting? Well, I think a lot, at least 4,000, of course. But one of the great, I don't know, one of the things about business, and, oh no, I'm talking about business, is that I think every industry wants to have certain aspects of what it does to enforce their quality control. And with movies, it's definitely technical, that when you see a movie in a movie theater, it looks like a movie, and it takes a lot of money to make that happen because of the film and the lenses and the production value. So one of the things that keeps the film industry maintaining its quality control is the amount of money it takes to make a movie look like a movie. And for the music industry, it was like that for many years. However, now you can create a studio quality song at home with a computer, or if you have, you probably need some cool microphones, but it's much less expensive. Now, in the case of, I'll say comic strips, not comic books, those tools have always been available, to the general public as far as going to the art store and getting some paper and some ink, but you never got to see the stuff that other people were doing because unless you got your stuff in a newspaper, there was no way for anyone to see how good you were. But now, because of the internet, you can make a great comic strip with $10 worth of materials, provided that you have something to say and you have the ability. So
and a scanner.
Oh, and a scanner, sure. So unlike some other bigger industries, no one in the world of print comics is being shut out by a technology gap. You need paper and ink and a scanner. So that levels the playing field to a large extent, but now the question is what to do with those 40,000 strips and what to do with those artists, and are the people who are in charge even interested in those? Shall I go on? I can stop.
Oh, go keep going. Keep going.
I mean, Well, it's hard to say. So I mean,
Well, what I like about people doing them online, they also show everybody's process. You know, they show your
okay.
growth as a person, as a strip, you know, as an artist, as a writer. You know, you show growth. And to me, personally, at least, that's very inspirational, you know.
Sure.
And that does also influence me as well. You know, I'll see how somebody did a line stroke, even if it's digital, and then maybe I'll try to mimic that as well within my work. You know, I mean, we feed off of each other. As much as we give, we also receive. And I think overall there are a larger percentage than most people give credit that would be publishable.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a ton of stuff, a ton of comic strips on the internet that are publishable. But I mean,
But
good.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, there are currently enough strips to keep the newspaper comic strip industry going, probably indefinitely, as long as they continue to have the little door that opens, you know, once or twice a year for one new little strip to come in, so they can, you know, market it and put it out there. But the thing that I am not as happy about with the newspaper comic industry is there hasn't been as much of a renaissance in the strips in the newspaper as, say, television. I feel that when Breaking Bad and Mad Men came along, all these other, and even as early as The Sopranos and things on HBO, that it started this chain reaction, and of course, The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones, and people, and then the Kevin Spacey, help me out here, House of Cards, and like all these great shows on like Hulu and Amazon,
Netflix.
And everyone's like, TV is now so much better than it was before, and it's almost worth staying at home because what's on TV is so much better than what's at the movies. And I think that was allowed to happen because people broke some rules on some non-network channels or what have you, and everyone's like, "Wow, look at what TV can do. Let's do that too." And I fear that on the comics page, although there have been minor shifts, it's that same the narrative ball is being knocked around in the same kind of container where you see, you know, jokes and family stuff and sort of the same stuff, but I have yet to see that Mad Men Breaking Bad thing on the comics page. And I suppose the flip side is that kind of innovation doesn't belong on the comics page because that's not what the comics page is for. The comics page is to recreate the kinds of things that belong on the comics page. And if you do something super crazy, there's going to be a lot of blowback, and people don't want that, and that's what the internet is for. And we want to play it safe. However, but it is my fear that the history of the comic strip stops at the edge of the newspaper. That you can look at big anthologies, and I see one over here on my shelf, that talks about the first 100 years of comic strips. You have like Superman or Yellow Kid, Crazy Cat, Little Orphan Annie, and then it moves up to Peanuts, Garfield, to like Dustin, Pearls Before Swine. I fear that when someone does a collection of the best strips from 2020 or 2025, it's either going to be the same stuff on the internet or it'll be the same stuff from newspapers. But there will be no anthology of the best strips on the internet because there are 40,000 strips and no one takes ownership of it. And the people that do those 40,000 strips don't need to have their stuff in a book because they're doing fine without your stupid book. So I would like to see, and also, how do you put 40,000 strips in a book? And if you put in like the best 100, how do you choose and who takes ownership of that book? Who is it? And what if people say no? So, as Jim's talking, as excited as I am about the opportunity that the internet allows 40,000 people get to do the kind of work they do, I'm also a little sad or a little like, I'm waiting for the newspaper industry, the syndicates, to find a way to make that jump so that there will be an anthology of the best new strips. I would like to see an innovation in the business model of what newspaper comic strips are going to do, and make the hurdle so everything that's happened for the past 100 years doesn't get blown up like one of those little ships in Galaga. And what happened to the timeline of comic strips? Where did they go? And it's like they just ended.
Oh, I see them more as expanding, you know. I think now I come from a journalism background. That's what I went to college for. And of course, then that's when the industry crashed when I graduated college. So
it's still there. It's different.
It's still there. But yes, it is morphing. It is changing. The problem is the majority of regular readers to a newspaper are in their 60s and usually older. That's the average demographic. Honest. Younger people are far less likely to pick up a paper in general. And so that's one of the bigger reasons why people that have strip comics in the paper don't push boundaries. Because technically you're dealing with the old fogies. And it's not to be rude to anybody who reads the newspaper. I still do read the newspaper, and I'm only in my 30s. But nonetheless, the majority, that's who they actually are more or less, focus around, and they don't want to rock that boat.
I will add to that to say that even if the readers are younger than 60, the safety guidelines as far as the content probably needs to appeal to older people or younger people of that mindset. But there are still lots of readers, but many older readers as well, and I'll agree with that, you bet.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so somebody needs to break the mold.
Yeah,
well,
and
make some crazy comics that make people go, holy shit.
Yep, that's what the internet's for.
Yeah, that is what the internet is for.
But that's...
And, I have pretty much stopped watching any regular, news channels or anything like that. And like I said, I'll occasionally pick up my local paper at least, but they are owned by a major news media outlet. They went around and bought up most of the majority of the smaller town papers. And so they're all from the same single source. So it's kind of...
Ooh, they're single sourced. Are they organic also?
Pretty much.
That's a joke.
And all have the same damn shit. They barely cover even their local towns,
But also, I just thought about something, is that back when comic strips in the newspapers had their, heyday, when the best thing you could give anyone for a birthday gift, whether they were, 10 or 50, was, a Far Side anthology, sort of in the mid-'80s, there was no internet. And the most fun you could have at home is, go to Blockbuster, and you could watch a movie and whatever. And the stuff that you got from those comic strips was a kind of buzz or sort of a giddy woo that you couldn't get anywhere else. And the internet now is super duper titillating. And as far as all the websites to look at and all the cool things you can do on your phone, and it's possible that comic strips are no less funny or interesting now, but just that the world got more interesting. And that's
they have a lot of competition now.
Much more competition, and I've heard that from many people who draw comics. But I think what comics do is still super duper unique, and the experience you get from reading something that's printed. Hello, my video's been turned off.
Yeah, it did it on mine too. Kelly, turn yours back on.
What the goddamn hell is going on?
Thank you, Skype, for saying glitch. So
This goddamn contraption is best of us all.
This crazy whirly gig. I don't think I'm there. Am I?
no, your icon is there, your little blank man is there, but not your video. There it goes. It's starting to take over
Speaking
now.
of technology, oh yeah, so the world got more interesting. So there's that. Sure. I mean, but again, I mean, the difference between reading a book and listening to an audiobook is huge, and you might get the same information, but it's a radically different experience. So that said, the thrill, then, the joy that people take from reading something that's printed, whether they see it on the internet or on,
On paper.
the experience of reading a comic strip is a very unique experience, and I feel like that will always have value. But as far as, producing something that, I don't know, people want to look at, or look at in the year 2016, that might be a different question. But I'm all for the comic strip renaissance, and I'm glad that there's all these new voices on the internet. I think the art form of comics is busy, is busy and booming, but the business of comics needs to do something. The business of comic strips needs to be a little more innovative. Otherwise, I think the divide between the newspaper and the internet is going to get further and further away, and that people, I don't know. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's nothing wrong. Sorry, the news.
I don't agree.
Jump in.
I don't agree. I don't think there will get a wider divide.
Okay.
Because newspapers are still morphing right now. I mean, they started this big shift back in about 2008, 2009 when the economy crashed here in the United States especially. And a lot of the big main ones, like a lot of towns, I can attest to Albuquerque, for instance, had two main papers, and one of them shut down because they just didn't have enough readership, and they hit that point that they shut down. And the Albuquerque Journal is still going right now, but I know they were struggling for quite a while. And part of what they had to do is they had to start changing up their format. You couldn't just do a printed version anymore. You had to flip over to tablets and the like, and these are getting more and more cheaper, more and more popular, and better quality ones are coming out just about every year. And I think part of what webcomics need to do is, especially the smaller guys, maybe you've got some similar markets. Let's say 4 or 5 guys have a similar, age range and, family-oriented strips. Well, then they need to band together and make their own app.
Mm-hmm.
One way to get around this, because let's face it, not everybody can get into the papers. Not all of us want to, And so maybe 4 or 5 guys need to get together, make themselves an app that shows 1 or 2 of each, guy's strips, daily, weekly, couple times a week. It updates, with new strips. But it always gives links to everybody's websites, everybody's Facebook page and whatnot. You want to see more, talk to the creator, talk to the artist. Because I think one of the bigger, better options, newspapers were a wall. And a pretty wall, and everybody could see the strip, but you couldn't interact with the creator. You couldn't talk to them. You couldn't voice your opinion, other than maybe the editor's page, and even then, you can't guarantee that your letter would get into the page. And to discuss whatever it is you wanted to discuss, maybe about that controversial strip, like, you had with the Sniftier incident.
Oh, yeah.
And, so the internet gives us more ready feedback, but that can also be, as much as it's a boon, it can also be a detriment.
What do you think about all
because,
this?
because, that can really influence you if you let it with your creations. I know of a couple people that were making fantastic work and just got so much negative feedback at one point, they just shut down. They took it all down and they left. And, as much as that feedback is good and it's good to build up your community and it builds up more interest, it can also be a big downfall if you let the negativity get to you, for one thing. Because haters are gonna hate.
What do you think about all this, Kelly?
Yeah, and 50 years ago, if you wanted to talk to anybody, if you had an issue with somebody, you had to write them a letter, but now you can just hop on Twitter and just let them have it. So I think everybody just feels really entitled that, if you don't like something, you can tweet at them, you can email them, you can cuss them out, you can troll them, and that is a negative aspect, but, on the whole, social media is a good thing. But at the same time, like, we're talking about your app, like, nothing will ever replace, like, holding the paper or holding the comic book. There's always something very special about that. But that would be cool to have an app where just every day is a new comic, and you don't know what it's going to be about, you don't know who the author is, but they have their links and stuff, and every day it just keeps refreshing and refreshing, and anybody can kind of submit to it. That'd be a very cool idea.
Yeah, there are some apps on there that are what I call website stripper apps, but they don't do it with the permission of the creators.
That's
the problem.
Those are aggregators.
Those are
Yep.
big problem,
Yep.
because they don't give credit to the creators, and that's one of the bigger issues I've always had with a lot of those guys. As much as you're showing everybody's work, and the creator wants to show everybody your work, oh, this is a great comic. Well, that's cool. Where's the credit to them? Did you ask their permission?
Yeah, and where's their money?
You're stealing from them. Yeah, it's
a buddy of mine, Jason Poland, tremendous comic artist. He does this comic called Robbie and Bobby, and Think Geek, which is I think a big company that sells gadgets and stuff like that, and talks about geeky stuff.
I've heard of that.
They reblogged or tweeted one of his comics and said, "Oh, here guys, this comic by Jason Poland," and he was furious. He was like, first of all, you didn't ask my permission. Second of all, you made a typo in my website. And third of all, you can't just post this and not pay me for it. You think you're doing me a favor, but nobody is really going to my website. Everybody's just going to your website looking at this comic. So you're not doing me any favors. Basically, pay up.
College Humor, when they first started out, they were doing that really badly, and I know they got slapped pretty hard for it. So now they've actually hired comics artists to produce content specifically for their website, which is fantastic. Because I like some of the comics they put up, and I follow several of the artists on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram, and but they had to get slapped with legal action, basically. I don't want to say what legal action because I don't know specifically which kind it was, but I knew at one point they actually gotten slapped, or at least threatened with legal action, and so they actually learned their lesson and pay the artist. Wow,
what a groundbreaking concept.
Yeah,
and comic artists are starting to realize now, they're starting to get over the whole exposure thing. We can't pay you right now, but it might lead to something bigger. But a lot of comic artists, thankfully now, are saying, no, where's my money?
Yeah. See, the thing about exposure is you die from it. You don't get anything else out of it. You die from exposure.
You can't pay rent with exposure.
No. You starve to death with exposure.
Okay.
So, if you like an artist's stuff, pay them, buy their work. This is one of the reasons why I mentioned Kelly, for instance, Etsy page, because she's got some great stuff on there. And, Jim, I know you're not really up to making the monies just yet, but we will always pimp it for you whenever you're there.
No. People can buy stuff right now, and they continue to buy stuff, but it's not my focus today.
Ah, okay. But they can get that off of your website, watsonstrip.com, right?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Good. I am getting my funds together, and I'll be getting some art prints up and whatnot in my Etsy shop. So when that goes live, I will be pimping it myself. But
Hey.
yeah. But overall, you got to pay the artist. I mean, that's the biggest thing you can do. I've had so many people approach me. For instance, I had a local church want to hire me to do a mural because I do, other artwork besides comics and whatnot. I do giant murals. The last lady I did one for, it was 16 foot tall, almost 20 foot across.
Wow.
Big wall. That was fun. Only took me a couple days, but it was nice. But a church approached me. They wanted me to do this nice, lovely, large mural for them of, I believe it was a saint that they wanted me. But before we'd even gotten to that point, I asked them, okay, well, what's your budget like? Well, what do you think you'll be able to pay me? What time frame are you needing this in? And their jaws dropped. They were like, oh, well, we don't have a budget. And I said, okay, so this is open-ended then? All right, I charge you this much an hour, and they're like, no, we don't have any money. And I'm like, then I'm not working.
Yeah, they seem to think it's just frivolous nonsense, like you're just doing it for fun.
Yeah.
It's not the case.
Now, there are plenty of people out there that make art as a hobby, and fantastic for them. Good. I'm glad you have that, freedom of movement to express your heart, and that's fantastic. I'm trying to make a living off of it. And, everybody's trying to find their way in this world, and that's my way, is I help make, art and comics and bring that joy and inspiration into the world, but you got to pay me for it.
Yeah, for sure.
And, trying to, for instance, it's pretty simple to honestly make apps, especially nowadays. You can take a Skillshare class, and it's pretty easy to set one up and get it approved by, like, the Google Store and the like, or on iTunes. And that way people can download it. But I think it would take basically getting a collective together. Like, I know of a couple of groups that group their comics together, and it's not necessarily, they're not always related to one another either, like Hiveworks. Hiveworks is a good one. They've got a lot of really good comics in their collective overall. And I think they would really profit better if they had an app, for instance. And that way they could introduce a new artist maybe once or twice a week. Mind you, that takes somebody, effort for somebody to be able to then take the time to set that up and keep it rolling. But it could actually make some money here pretty decently and work with newer technology and introduce comics more to a wider audience.
Yeah, I think the people on the internet are many of them are doing fine. I think the internet has its own set of issues, or I mean people on the internet, individual artists have their own individual issues to tackle as far as artist X in this state and artist B in this other state. How do I get more people to read my strip, and how do I make my shirts? I'd say my number one concern is probably what's going to happen to the comic strip industry in probably newspapers, and how will they navigate the world of the internet and sort of changing tastes. So,
so far, at least from King Syndicate perspective, I know a couple of artists and creators on there. I, in fact, interviewed one here just a little while back, Bill Holbrook.
Oh, yeah.
He does On the Fast Track.
Yes.
He was our interviewee last episode.
Yes. What did Bill say?
And, overall, King Features, they do both the print side, and then they started doing their website, gocomics.com. And I know recently they did an app. Yes. And it aggregates off of the website.
Good, yeah.
So, I mean, they're learning to evolve, but it's basically being forced on them. At least that's the way I understand it from my perspective and from the people that I know on the inside.
Yeah,
I think papers. overall. They're still morphing and changing. I can't completely say they're not going to not keep the comics page.
Oh, they will. I believe so. And I think newspapers will be
You
around
think
for a
so?
while. Oh, sure. I mean, the comics page is what sells newspapers.
Yeah, it's the main entertainment page of the paper.
I don't doubt it.
And anymore, our news is what you call infotainment.
That's funny, yeah.
That's one of the biggest terms I always heard thrown around since the early 2000s when I was in the journalism programs and whatnot. They called it infotainment.
Fun.
Yeah. I was like, okay, that's an interesting wording mesh.
I think newspapers will continue to be around for a long time. I would just hope that while that's doing its thing, that comics on the internet or the syndicates start to take more of a innovative interest in creating content on the internet, or doing just more interesting things, or having
An expanded focus.
maybe an expanded focus. Yeah. So that there is an anthology about comic strips from the year 2030 that's about strips and papers, but also strips on the web, or there's some way to do something with all the content on the web and not have it be an afterthought. But I mean, for the time being, there's not the newspaper machine that's producing revenue is not broken, and it's a giant wheel that's been spinning for 100 years. And even if the gears have stopped, it's going to continue to turn out money for syndicates and artists for another 20, 25 years. And everyone's very excited about young adult books. And getting cartoonists to do those, which is getting that sort of same skill set, pictures with words, into a different market, which is in bookstores and young readers and Diary of a Wimpy Kid and all that sort of stuff. So that might be another avenue to explore, but it's not the same as a comic strip. So,
Oh yeah.
But it's different.
But yeah, it's just different, and things are just going to change. You never know where it's going to go. Honest.
That's true. That is true. I wish more people would actively craft where it was going to go than just wait for the dust to settle. Sort of like get out.
Well,
there
but
and,
with our current political atmosphere, we might need to wait till the dust settles, at least from that, before we can do anything.
well, provided no one from the government is kicking open newspaper doors and demanding that there's no more comics page or what have you, or the price of things changes. But I think innovation. If someone comes up with the right blend, I think there'll be a place for it.
Well, if Trump gets his way, well, I'll be out of a job.
I won't comment on politics. It's not my.
But that's my opinion.
Oh no, of course it's not my way. I'm an artist.
Yeah.
Canadians just love watching this, this mess happening in the USA. This
Yeah,
I call it
clusterfuck
straight up
happening.
clusterfuck. Yeah,
Trump is wacky.
it's all amount of fucking all the way around.
Yeah, no, Trump is wacky. I agree 100%. He won't have my vote.
Yeah.
Canadians are just watching this train wreck.
Kelly, if you were going to vote for anybody right now and you were in the United States, who would you be able to vote for?
Well, there's only
Well,
You have
isn't
a couple
it only
options.
Trump and Hillary left?
kind of.
From the major parties.
Oh,
There-
it's
there's
like
still-
I was like
There's
in
the
Bernie,
Dolphin
but didn't
Party.
he go out?
Yeah.
Well, technically, he's not out of the race yet until the 25th, whenever the Democratic Party actually officially announces her as their
Right.
winner.
I would just say somebody who's not a crook, but it just doesn't look too hopeful right now.
I know. And it's scary. The only reason why I'm against Trump, well, besides his bigotry and his sexism and his misogyny
That's a good enough reason.
yeah, there's a list. He's actually specified that journalists and anybody in the print industry is an enemy because anytime they say anything negative against the government and politics, makes them an enemy. I'm not joking. He specified this on Twitter.
Wow. But
So
like,
I just keep telling them, revoke his Twitter, account, shut it down, don't let him talk because it's just coming out all hate.
yeah. And journalists are like supposed to be the good guys who are kind of like just relaying non-biased information.
Sure.
They're supposed to be, yeah.
Yeah. Have you kind of given up on journalism now, Melanie?
Yeah.
Melanie,
Yeah.
your thing there looks like a lightsaber. Yep.
A tiny one. Oh no, it just doesn't have the light happening.
Overall, I have given up. I wanted to work in the print industry, and that's why I focus mainly in journalism, because it's kind of hard to get a degree in just print media in general, so I went ahead and focused in journalism. I focused specifically in advertising, actually, but when the economy crashed, a bunch of those guys shut down, and the few that were still kind of up and running were only in like New York or over around like San Francisco and the like, and I was not going to move to either one of them. No.
Fair enough.
I don't like big major cities like that. They give me the creeps.
Mm.
Too many people. No. I'll go back to my introvert bubble.
My.
I go back to my bubble. I'm happy in my bubble.
A true artiste.
Yeah, I am. It's the way I am personally. But no, I tried to overall get into. Excuse me. Tried to get into print in any way I could for several years, but to no avail. So I said, you know what? I'm going to use what I learned, at least, to better what I can do. And I started creating comics then. I always wanted to anyways, but that was always my end-all goal, was to just create comics in general. I just wanted to work in print media to be able to learn from the behind the scenes with other things, you know?
You'd be surprised based on, and I can't speak for everyone, it's pretty solitary. Even if you are, if your stuff is in print, depending on where it's in print, I mean, you have the chance to go to like Comic-Cons and meet people, but it's still wake up, have your breakfast, and then back to the drawing board. So
Yep.
You can, hang out with other artists and call them on the phone and do video stuff, but it's still the 9 to 5 or the daily of drawing strips is still got to be in the studio.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
So overall, that's where I focused. So I said, well, hell with it. I'll just go ahead and make my comics, make my art. And yes, I have a day job to, pay the bills right now. Maybe eventually I'll be able to make a full living off of comics and art, but not right now, at least me personally.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
How about you, Jim? Do you have a day job, or are you able to make kind of a full-time out of it?
I make a full-time job with things in the arts. I do Watson, and I do one other thing which will remain top secret, but it is related. It is in the arts, but probably not as.
He's a love advice columnist.
I do a.
Yes.
Welcome back to
love advice. He's like Dear Abby.
Loveline Comics. Tonight on the phone we have Mr. Fantastic, who's talking about the pros and cons of stretching.
Right.
Yeah. So no,
right.
it's
and flexing. Yes,
that's funny.
yes.
Yeah. So no, it's everything from the arts, and Watson is part of it. And there's another little thing that's not as exciting, but those together. I make as much money with Watson as I want to.
Very
That's
cool.
good. You're lucky.
Well, you know what?
Or-
I always.
But extremely talented.
If I were, this is what I've learned and again, this might be a very strange perspective. If I thought that making more money from the strip would radically alter my perception of making the strip, as if once you make a certain amount of money, then you get a new set of like eyeballs and you can see like different colors or it affects. Like if I thought that, if I could make $1 million a year, then the quality of your work would improve by 10,000, like, well, I want to see what that artwork looks like. And this may only work for me, but hear me out, that your relationship with the work that you do is one thing. And if you need more time to do it, then clearly not having a day job gives you more time to make your art. But in most cases, I think people want to make, or the conversation of, do you make a living and how much do you make, is a separate conversation from how do you feel about your relationship with what you make. And
Absolutely.
people tend to get those kind of, they think it's the same conversation, but it's different. Or it's two different things. So you can maybe you hold your head up a little higher and say, hey, I just did something that took me an hour, and that's $5,000 right there. That can feel good. But as far as, you know, because I'm making $5,000 or $10,000 per strip, it won't necessarily make you a better artist. It won't make you necessarily funnier, and it won't make you, the connection with your work may not be affected. So I suppose I mean, I suppose it's like being in a relationship. Like, if you're in love with your work, you can be in love in a little room, or you can be in love in a mansion. But if you don't love that person, then it doesn't matter where you are. And I suppose the moral of the story is...
So to make certain to do, you got to wine and dine it. You got to take it out to the fanciest restaurant. You got to show it the ring on the finger, you know.
You know, but I mean, yeah, that's it can be nice to have a nice place to put your head at night, and it can be fun to have a cool car. But in the end, you with your work is a very like one-on-one sort of thing, and the money is sort of a separate issue, I think. But I think that's because we live in a society where making money at something is the ultimate throne. Where
which is a shame.
Well, yeah, it's bigger than all. That question is bigger than all three of us. But
yeah, for sure.
You know, funny is funny, and good is good. So, and there's you know, people that have done great stuff that are not appreciated. There's a million great movies that were made for, you know, Memento was made for $4 million and won Best Picture, and Pulp Fiction was made for $8 million and that won Best Picture. Oh, sorry, no, I'm sorry, not Best Picture, Best Screenplay. Excuse me. You know, and those guys got their trucks of money later on, but they didn't need a truckload of money to do good stuff early on.
Yeah, you can put a price tag on your work as well. Like when I do my little auto-bio strips and stuff like that in my Naked Lady patterns, like I enjoy doing that so much, and I feel like my love for that work and just doing it and having fun, I feel like it shows through on the image. But if somebody said, I'm going to pay you $100 to draw this, like it's almost like it becomes a drag then for some reason. I don't know what it is, but just yeah.
They said they pay you $100 to draw something else.
Yeah.
Draw naked dolphins. How about that?
Naked dolphins.
It's been my experience, and I might be alone on this, that the thrill from money fades, but the thrill from doing good work does not.
Or good pizza.
It depends.
Yes.
You bet. It's better the next day.
Oh man.
Chinese food.
Good pizza lasts.
Reheated or just cold. Oh, I had one recently with it's like had a really oily crust, and it had Parmesan cheese like baked into the crust. Oh. Chicken on it. Oh.
Parmesan.
Anyway, we're off topic.
What are we talking about?
Food. No. Okay. So why don't we just hit up real quick that final little news story real fast here that we talked about.
It's not the end of the interview, is it?
No, not quite. Just a little bit longer. Okay. We had talked about Kickstarters. I came across this news article on the Nerdy Bird about what no one tells you about running a Kickstarter campaign, and I know Kelly specifically here said that she was probably going to be doing a Kickstarter here pretty soon for a project. You know, overall, this news article does really good on evaluating both the pros and the cons of doing a Kickstarter, you know. So I'll go over at least the basic points of it and get you guys' feedback on that. You know, overall, Kickstarters are really good for funding projects. I found best with comics to fund the comic. Whenever an artist puts it up, instead of going in there to try to get funding to specifically cover them making it, it should already pretty much be made. They're just trying to get money together to publish it. I think that's more a more successful and more often a better received campaign than the ones that go in saying, okay, in 2 years I'll have you your book out.
Yeah.
I have backed a couple of those, but they didn't specify until afterwards that that's what was going on, that they hadn't actually finished the book yet. So, 2-3 years down the road, all of a sudden this book shows up that I've completely forgotten about. And I'm like, oh, hey, comics, but who are you again?
Sure.
Yeah. Generally speaking, if you're going to do a Kickstarter, full funding is in less than a few hours is always the exception, never the rule. Usually you have to do at least a 30 to 60, up to, I think that you can do up to like a 90-day campaign to try to raise the funds to, for instance, publish your book. You should already gotten out and gotten estimates on how much the books will cost, and that way you have all of your plans already ironed out ahead of time. I know too many people that have jumped into a Kickstarter not knowing any of that and having to, literally stumble through it. That's a terrible business aspect, because this is a business. We love making comics, but you also have to at least have some business savvy to be able to keep it going. So full funding, sure. Don't expect full funding right away, if at all. Hope for it, plan for it, pray for it. But maybe that's why you should keep that threshold a little low. So that way if you hit it and exceed it, fantastic, But at least maybe then you can publish a certain amount of books when you hit that basic threshold.
Right.
After the first day, backing rates always drop off. Usually the first day is your most important day. Kickstarter is very good about promoting the newest Kickstarter campaigns right up on their front page right away. And it gets, across Twitter, Facebook, and all the social media pretty fast. But after that first day, the rate of people joining up to back it always drops off. So you need to plan on basically devoting a full day to social media coverage on your part.
Yeah, I got to put the work in.
Yes, definitely. And already have it basically pre-planned out. It's the best way to do it. All right. Next one is don't bog your potential backers down with too much information. If you overdo it, if you basically overshare, giving them 5 paragraphs to read about your great work is going to turn a lot of people off. We are talking about, keep it simple. What I like to call the elevator pitch. I hear people frequently talk about, whenever you go to a con and you're behind your table and you're trying to entice people to at least pick up your book, especially newer readers, you have to come up with some sort of very quick, basic, one couple sentence paragraph to entice them over, your elevator pitch. Use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid.
Right.
It's the easiest way to go. So don't overdo it to potential people. So when your Twitter, your Facebook, and your social media, you just need a couple of quick lines, and that's it, But you keep that up. If anybody has any more questions, that's when you entice them to go over to back, and then they can get more of the information then. Plateaus in your rates and how the campaign's going are going to happen. So it's going to, plateau off throughout your campaign. Hopefully you can rise above that plateau, but don't get discouraged. Any and every project I've ever seen, business or otherwise, there's always plateaus in it.
That's good advice. Good article.
Yeah, it's a very good article, and I'll link it down on the doobly-doo again for everybody that wants to go through it more in depth. Media outlets are not your personal army Letting websites, blogs, and podcasts know that you exist is a great way to get more buzz for your Kickstarter, but they're not obligated to cover your work. You are your main driving force, so you have to push it out there. So anybody that follows you, you can politely ask them to please reblog and retweet whatnot about my project, but nobody is obligated to do so. So don't get angry at anybody who doesn't do it. You're going to also receive a lot of spam when you start doing a Kickstarter. Your Kickstarter email is going to get flooded. Expect it.
Is spam that weird little thing that comes in the blue can?
Well, yeah, too, and it's pretty salty, but it's delicious, especially when you fry it up with a nice bit of BLT-ness.
How are they going to fit that in my email? I'm confused.
Very carefully. It's canned.
Okay.
You're going to have to produce a lot of extra content to entice people to go ahead and not only back the Kickstarter, but go ahead and maybe do some of those extra tiers you might set up. You know, I know a lot of people, whenever they sit down to do their Kickstarter, they also want to do stickers and t-shirts and mugs and tote bags and a number of other content. You need to factor in that extra time of making that and that extra money needed to make it. A lot of people don't always cover that and shipping, including it in the cost of backing. So make certain when you're doing your tiers, okay, I want to, tier 1 is just the basic digital download, okay. Tier 2 is maybe just the basic book. Tier 3, book and digital content, but maybe they get a sticker too. Okay, well then make certain to include that little extra cost in there, in with the tier, so that way you are not shooting yourself in the head. There are too many people I know that have done a Kickstarter, gotten the money to be able to make their book, and then realize that all that extra stuff they promised is they have to actually, in fact, go and even get a loan to make that stuff, even though they promised it and they should have, included that in the coverage of the cost. They didn't factor it in.
Melanie, I thought of a good point. If they like to offer some incentives for fans of 80s music, they can offer Tears for Fears as well.
There you go. There you go.
Jim, your references are off the chain.
Everyone wants to rule the world.
Yeah, just tremendous.
It's also really easy in the final aspect of this to freak yourself the fuck out with making a campaign. Again, you're diving into some deep waters. Planning ahead and having your content already pretty much made, including even the extra doodads and gewgaws, already having it done, will save you a lot of anxiety, a lot of headache, and give you that safety raft that you're going to need when you're doing a crowdfunding campaign like this. I haven't done a Kickstarter myself, at least not yet. I've contemplated it, but again, that's a future project, probably when I get enough strips together. And if I've got enough audience that might want that, then I think I'll do it then. But there are too many people I know that have dove into doing a Kickstarter and had no plan in place, nothing made, promised the world, and basically shot themselves in the face doing so. So don't get your hopes up too high when you're making it. Put yourself a low threshold so that way you don't freak yourself out. Go ahead and have all your content you want to be able to make for people done. Okay, I want to publish my book. I want to be able to do 3 stickers and a t-shirt. Okay, go get all your estimates for that done and set in stone. Figure out how much it's going to be for a book plus a T-shirt, a book plus some stickers, etc., etc. Figure out all those costs and then make up your tiers.
And pad the hell out of it.
Yes. And your first couple of days, especially, become the media machine. But in the end, if you have enough planning done, you won't freak yourself out. You'll, in fact, still be psyched for your project. But in the end,
just
also
take your time.
Yeah, take your time and take care of yourself. Your first couple days, especially of the campaign, are going to be your most stressful. The first couple days and then the very last day. Because it's going to end, and that's when you got the final say of if it survived or not.
Yeah, for sure.
And we should also talk about the fact that if it doesn't succeed, what would you do? So, Kelly, let's say you set it up. Let's say you did a low bar. Let's say you did everything right, but it just doesn't succeed. What would you do?
Well, a buddy of mine had a Kickstarter a couple of years ago, and he was trying to do a comic, and it didn't get funded, but then he tried it again, like a couple months later, and it did get funded. So it actually depends, I think, on like the time of year that you're pitching. Like, I think maybe in the summer, people are a bit more pumped for comics, maybe. So, try again, but, if it doesn't get funded the second time around, I might just try to save my own money and self-publish or something.
There you go. Oh, there's always more than one way around it. Kickstarter is just one of the better ways to be able to do crowdfunding. There's always Indiegogo as well. And that way, it's a one-time fee, and you don't have to worry about the campaign actually having to raise enough money. You'll get enough from that to at least be able to make some books for people.
And there's also print on demand, where people go and they buy a copy and it gets made for them.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
With Create Space on Amazon.
Yeah, there are several options. Lulu does print on demand as well.
There's a million.
So, I mean, there's always more than one way around it. Kickstarter is just one way to do self-publishing. Have you ever thought about doing self-published, like for Watson at all there, Jim, or just doing like print on demand at all?
I've thought about it. It's not, at the moment, not super interesting, or it's not a priority. I am, at present, kind of most interested in just drawing the strip and thinking about the next strip. And I do get a lot of requests for things that I don't have, or I have not made. The thing that most readers want is a Watson collection. And I said, oh, yes, sure, soon. But it hasn't happened yet, and it's just sort of like, if people like Facebook me or message me and they want to print, that's cool, and that's easy to happen. They can buy prints. Not yet, but it's at some point. Same thing. It's on my list. I won't be doing it tomorrow, but
future.
Yeah. And
you need a Watson
tattoo.
I want a Watson collection at some point, so put me on that list of want.
Sure.
Yeah, get a Watson omnibus done. Eventually.
Oh, yes. Yeah, eventually. I mean, but the strip in 2 months, the strip will be 3% funnier and it'll look 3% better. So, when to start?
Woo!
Who knows? Yeah.
That 3% goal.
Yeah, I'd say next year it'll be. I look back at the things I did a year ago and I was like, wow, it looks much better now. It'll continue to change and grow.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
Exactly. Well, that's the fun part about looking at, for instance, at the collections of Peanuts from when Charles Schultz started them up until right before he passed away. I mean, they were fantastic, but you could see a clear evolution of style, character, and development in story.
I really like the way they looked back in the beginning.
Yeah, you liked the earlier?
I mean, it's a little more to my sensibilities, but it's all good.
I like when Snoopy was still on his 4 legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked a lot better.
Yeah. Who knows? But it's nice that you can, as you get older, you can sort of just wiggle it. And Charles Schultz said that he liked to do as little pre-penciling as possible so that it would be spontaneous when he inked to capture as much.
To be as organic as possible.
Yes.
Oh, very cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he drew very big, very big.
Yeah, he did. I mean, they were huge.
Like two by 3.5. They're really big.
Really?
Yeah.
Very, very big.
A lot of the older cartoonists too, they do it very large. They always did.
Yes.
But it was specifically designed for papers too. So.
Yeah, things were bigger back then, and some people draw. Patrick McDonald, who draws Mutts, says that he draws about maybe about double the size of the newspaper. But I mean, it's really,
Small. Yeah, it's not that large.
Yeah, and he works faster that way. And some people do pen and ink, and some people do digital, and some people have strange methods that they've carried over for decades and decades that they just don't want to update because it's how they work, and then like really weird, like with tracing paper and light boxes and all sort of wacky stuff you wouldn't believe.
Oh, I know of the historic wacky stuff. The college I went to, they still had a print shop when I first started into the journalism program, and so they were still using graph paper and
the wax machine.
Yes, they were still using that at that moment. Now, they were changing over at the time to full digital, but when I slid in, basically, I at least got to, for a very brief time, use some of the older tools and help lay out the school paper and things like that. And, oh, man, I was like, oh, this is old.
Yeah, the wax machine, I love that. Kelly, the wax machine, in case you don't know, do you know about the wax machine?
No.
They used to, when they used to lay out the paper, they would have like a big sheet and they'd print out the stories like off a printer, and they'd cut them, and there was a wax machine that looked sort of like the rollers from like an old timey washing machine with hot wax, and you would take the paper once you had it cut out and run it through and go like, and it'd pop out on the other side and be sticky. And then you would lay out all the sticky pieces on the page until it looked like what the newspaper would look like, and that's what they would photograph. So if it's like, no, move that down here, you'd sort of like, it's like refrigerator magnets. So you unstick that.
Then you could rearrange the page.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's done all digital through like Quark Express and whatnot, which is fantastic. I love that program.
It's fantastic.
It is.
Yeah, I've gotten a bit more smart, but the way I used to do my patterns is just make like a dozen little cutouts and then like rearrange them as I wanted them on the page and then tape them there and use a light box to trace it. It took like ages, but now I just use a sketch and a light box. But I've come a long way. But there's something charming about just rearranging it kind of with your hands instead of doing it digitally.
Yeah, being able to do it physical gives it a different aspect, a different feel.
Yeah. Now I just do a sketch.
Oh.
Sexy!
There's some TNA for you.
Oh, cool. That's how I do it too.
Not the naked times. Not the naked times.
I draw. I don't draw digitally either.
No, like people keep telling me to get a tablet, and I don't know. I just like inking. I probably should eventually, but
No, don't do it.
Well, I am definitely a traditionalist myself. I like doing ink and watercolors. That's my heart. My heart. That's where it went. I've tried digital with my strip here. Almost the first year, I did pretty much digital. I would at least sketch and trace out my strip on a strip down on paper, but then I would scan that in and ink it digitally basically and letter it and color it there. And it just felt too plasticky to me. I didn't have enough heart in it, So I'm relaunching it here pretty soon, and I'm going to do it more traditional.
That's it for everybody, yeah.
Yeah, you know, evolution, you know, you figure it out along the way. If you can't do it one way, you try it another. And if it doesn't work that way either, try another, you
Some
know.
people switch to digital and you can't tell a difference, and some people you can, and it's a whole big thingy.
Yeah, it works, you know, whatever way it works for you. And if you need to try it one way and it just doesn't work out, don't, you know, fret. Go to the next.
Mm.
There's no point in getting angry about it, let alone quitting. That's
Yeah,
silly.
for sure.
Don't quit.
No, never quit. All right, well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. We've been yammering on a fair amount of time. So thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us, Jim.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, nice
So-
meeting you, Jim.
You too, Kelly. Thank you. You guys are.
All right,
did a great
so
job.
thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. Please like, share, subscribe, retweet, all that good stuff. All right. That was Jim. He's got his Facebook page at facebook.com/Watson Comics. You can find myself. I'll be over at ornamentalcomics.com. And Kelly, you can find her over on Etsy under Moose Kleenex and also under Instagram under Moose Kleenex. All right. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Talk to you next time.
Bye.